now, broadcasting from Titletown, USA, here's Joe Simon.
Seems like the world is talking about gold and silver and precious metals. And you see the commercials and you like to hold it in your hand. And we've been kind of growing up with that over the last several months, several years. So we're going to tackle that issue today. We're going to hear from a subject matter expert. And here's why: because gold prices have recently skyrocketed to record highs, signaling a fundamental shift in investor confidence, concern for future stability of traditional financial systems. The three questions we're going to tackle, and more if we have time, is, hey, Fort Knox, where's the gold? Number two, why are we seeing a declining confidence in the U.S. dollar? And number three, looking for historical reference in your retirement decisions question. We may have some insights that you really may find interesting and that you haven't heard before. So joining me now, subject matter expert, President, National Gold Consultants, Ryan Long. Welcome in, Ryan.
Hey, Joe. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, we know you're a busy guy, especially now these days. So let's get right at it. I guess the big question that is on the street, you could be in the diner, you could be filling up your gas tank, etc. It's a quick starter. What do you think about Fort Knox, and is there still gold there?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it, Joe? And
it is.
It's a little above our pay scale to say the least. But it's one of those things, Joe. Whether it's there, whether it's not, there's a reason why central banks are loading their holdings towards physical metal, because whether it's there or not, this just seems to be the trend based on our fiat debt system right now.
And then President Trump's recent statement. Do you want to address something like that about who has the gold wins, something like that?
Well, I think is what he said is he who has the gold makes the rules.
There you go.
I don't know about you, but I like to be on that side as well. A lot to unpack there, Joe. So what does that really mean? It really comes down to, money or currency is power, right? And from the existence of time, what is money? Well, money is a store of value, and that's what gold is. And currency, which is our dollar, a debt-based system, it's not a store of value. That just gets riddled away with devaluation of purchasing power. So what Trump said, if you have the gold, I guess you make the rules. So hopefully we have the gold.
Right. Hey, I really believe who we want to try to attract to the conversation today is someone who's a novice in this, somebody that might have a big jar of collectible pennies and Indian head nickels and things like that. And we all know that's somewhat of a collection, but we want to take it to another level. And in a minute, we're going to address something that you talk long and hard about, is this pre-1933 coinage. But before I get to that, can we just take a flashback? Let's go back. I don't want to go back too far on this subject, but I find it fascinating. Around 1971, when President Nixon did something, I think that's a good 101 lesson as we dip our toes into this today.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, Joe, so everybody's up to speed. But even financial experts, they don't necessarily understand the issue or what transpired in 1971. So what happened in 1971? We had President Nixon, and if you all remember, he got up to the podium and he basically said to the entire world, we're going to temporarily suspend the gold standard for the U.S. currency. So what is temporarily suspended? And if I'm allowed to rewind a little bit to this, Joe, prior to 71, the government had to view the budget, the spending, similar to a debit card. Okay, you can only spend, you can only add to the deficit based on how much gold and silver are in said reserves. Okay, well, what Nixon did in 71 was he eliminated that debit card financial spending and inserted or translated that into, or transitioned that into a credit card type spending. So when we got off this gold standard in 71, and we're still temporarily suspended here in 2025, what this does is allows the government to have zero accountability for the spending and the deficits that we've seen. And there's no reason, or there's no secret as to why we're seeing inflation in our U.S. currency type of status, is because
Right.
The hen comes home to roost.
Right. I think that was simply put. Can we address how that's now sort of melted down over, what is that, 40 years, almost 50 years, and what the world is kind of feeling about the value of our dollar right now?
Well, the dollar is only valued based upon the confidence individuals have, because it is no longer an asset-based or a gold and silver-based currency. So as soon as consumer or national confidence is diminished, that's when we start to see countries, central banks, sovereign entities no longer buying our U.S. debt. So the financing of our economic system is simply governments and central banks alike are buying the United States treasuries, which is our debt. What we are seeing now is a mass exodus of our treasuries, and I mean, it's over the next 3.5 years of our $36 trillion of debt. We have over $28 trillion of our treasuries coming due. So when we're seeing this mass exodus of countries alike no longer buying our debt, that velocity of currency comes to shore for us, and that is why we're seeing inflation like we're seeing, and that is why we, in my humble opinion, we're not only going to see this current inflation, it's going to likely exacerbate.
So precious metals enters the conversation. You know, there are ETFs out there. There's your neighbor who buys the bars of gold and silver and Cougaran and things of that nature. There's a lot of ways to slice and dice this. One of the things that I want to bring to the forefront, and we can address those other things too, but you really seem to be a subject matter expert amongst many when it comes to this pre-1933 coinage.
Yeah, so Joe, inside of any sort of financial instrument, there's a right and a wrong way to do a lot of things, right? That same principle applies towards physical gold and silver. So if I unpack the difference between physical and an ETF is a stock. The layman's example I like to give is a grocery store example. Okay, an ETF is like a gift card to your grocery store. Okay, wonderful. The problem is if the grocery store is closed, or they no longer have groceries, there's a vast difference between a gift card to a grocery store saying you can buy goods and services, or having that pantry stocked in your kitchen, right? Two vastly different things. So an ETF is like that gift card. It's paper. It has a play for more of a short term. If you're a day trader and you're an expert in financial markets, that's an ETF is perfect for you. If you're like myself and you're looking at financial independence and getting away from said dollar, having an inverse relationship or just a counterbalancing type of an asset, that's where the physical comes in play. Now, your local neighbor, he might buy a bar from Costco. Hey, that's great, of gold and silver. The problem is notice the disclaimers on Costco. They don't buy them back. There's no exchanges. There's no returns. That the bar industry is extremely illiquid. On top of that, there's a lot of counterfeit and scam in that industry. So we have to just be, and Costco is not selling any counterfeit things, but that's also why it's very illiquid. Okay. Now it transitions to the pre-33. Why do we do, and when we say pre-33, we're talking older American coinage that are, if you look at the stamped date on the coin, they are minted, 1933 and older. So why is that historically relevant and important? It's just how the government, Joe, views and utilizes this asset class. And so the simple and the short answer of it, the pre-33 coins is a completely private, anonymous transaction when you purchase it and also when you liquidate. So what does that mean? It's like having that proverbial cash under your mattress. No one knows what you have. A great way to build generational wealth. Whereas the bars like from Costco, all of it's reported. It's considered a commodity versus the pre-1933 coins are a currency.
So how do we know when we're into the pre-33s and we want to sell that back, and let's say I've got $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 of this, and years go by, I want to start trading it in and I need some cash for something. How do I know I'm getting a fair price for that?
Well, that's a great question. And the market essentially, Joe, dictates itself because you have, going back to that ETF example, the ETFs are valued based on the spot price or the index price of just the universal price worldwide of what gold and silver is. Okay, so you have that side of it is you've got your ounce or whatever that is in your gold and silver coin. It's never less than that. Okay, so we use the spot price as a way, Joe, that individuals are able to track current pricing, because what's behind the scenes of a pre-33 coin is, or the elephant in the room of, well, they obviously don't make these coins anymore. So there's a finite supply or availability of this product offering. So when we look at gold and silver and we look at why pre-33, we use this as a counterbalancing thing to a hedge against our markets, hedge against inflation. And when we see a 2008 type event happen, when a recession occurs, gold and silver plays an inverse role towards your stock market. We see a 401k turn into a 201k. Inversely, gold and silver rises, and then you have not only the ETF price rise, but then all of a sudden, it's human emotion, Joe. Everybody wants to jump in on this. Whereas I like to say the best time for flood insurance is before a hurricane arrives. So
isn't that the truth?
Yeah, absolutely. But during that time, as far as the fair value, you're going to have your price of your gold and silver, which will never go away, your ounces of your metal, but you also have a floating supply and demand, and the market dictates that based upon availability. So obviously the best time to sell is when everybody's buying, right? And conversely. So as far as pricing
is there a benchmark? Is there how do I, as just an average consumer, go, I'm thinking about doing this, but before I flip all the switches on, is there somewhere I can just kind of off the record before everyone gets excited, peer in and go, yeah, I think this is a good time to sell some of this? What in 30 seconds or less, what would you say about that?
And that is, Joe, the best thing about working with a financial advisor such as yourself. Clients aren't there left to their own device. There's definitely a time to buy, definitely a time to sell, but we look at this as health insurance. Similarly, you don't get rid of your health insurance because you feel well today. When there is times to counterbalance, that's where you come in as the expert and as the advisor to say, hey, it's time to take some winners off the table.
Right. Hey, you know what? This is a meaty conversation, and I think we're going to take this to a part 2. So for everybody looking in right now, we just gave you a little bite, a little sampler of what we want to do in the next session, and you'll get more information at the end of today to find out how to stay in touch here. But we're going to sign off, go to part 2, and if you're interested, jump in on part 2. So we'll talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Joe Simon Podcast. Big ideas with powerful stories and real-time solutions. Business succession planning, executive benefits, employee benefits, tax beneficial savings, and more. Remember, information discussed here today is dated and not specific to your situation. Always seek personal counsel from qualified advisors. For more about Joe Simon, go to DaVinciInsurance.com. Joe Simon is a licensed insurance agent in the state of Wisconsin. Licensed to advise on accident and health, life insurance, disability insurance, and annuities, as well as qualified long-term care insurance. Make sure to visit the DaVinciInsurance.com archives for more of our podcasts.